Next on the program, it is time for today's monthly interview with Mayor Scott Gillingham, who is in studio with us live this morning. Hi there.
Good morning. Great to be with you.
Nice to see you. We've had a bit of a summer break, so we'll be back at our monthly conversations.
Yes, looking forward to it.
Yeah.
It's been a great summer, but there's so much work to do. And so we are at City Hall. We're back full throttle with all the different files that we're working on.
Housing, always top of mind. You're in the news talking about housing this morning, some of the starts that you guys have been able to achieve by the numbers. I want to play you a clip, actually. Why don't we start with housing? This was on the show yesterday. So we've been talking about homeless encampments on CBC the last week, all over the city, but also possible next steps before those, housing units can be built to house people outside of encampments, should that be their choice. But on CBC yesterday, we heard Kim Ritchie. Kim Ritchie weighed in on what the city of Hamilton's working on. So Ritchie's on the board of directors for the Substance Overdose Education Prevention Network, for those of you that missed the interview. She's also experienced being houseless herself. So Hamilton has some new encampment protocols. Ritchie says in her city, which sounds actually a lot like our city, they need sanctioned encampments is what she would like to see until proper housing can be built. Here's just a bit of what she said.
The protocols are in place, but enforcement has been challenging because it's a lot of money to go around, and still because folks are being moved. If they're a violation of the protocols, they get moved, and then outreach workers can't find them. And this is a huge challenge. You can't house somebody you can't find. And the amount of human resources that's wasted just trying to keep up with where people are being moved to is insane. When you have sanctioned sites, you can have designated restrooms, you can have, garbage pickup weekly, and then people can find people. I can't emphasize the importance of being able to find somebody when you're completing a housing application, when you're going apartment hunting, when you're helping them get their ID back and you need them to sign some more forms. You know what I mean? I cannot tell you how important that is.
So Mayor Scott Gillingham, I'm curious what your thoughts are on the idea of sanctioned encampments here in Winnipeg, because she raises a lot of, logical points there.
Well, first of all, I think, just playing that clip is just indicative of the fact that across Canada, certainly across North America, but for sure, Marcy, across Canada, every major city is facing the challenge of homelessness, where there's too many people who are living unsheltered and homeless. And so I think, that's a reminder that every one of the mayors, councils, service providers in our communities across Canada are facing similar challenges. We want to end homelessness, not just manage it. And so I would rather us be putting our efforts into getting more housing built and getting people into housing with wraparound supports. We're focused on that rather than be looking at moving to sanctioned encampments. I'm not in favor of that at this point. I've been to other cities where there have been sanctioned encampments, and individuals, rightly and fairly so, have a freedom of movement and don't stay in those encampments, even though there's a sanctioned area. And so I respect, and this individual who the clip of which you played has lived experience, so I'm not going to certainly argue with their lived experience. I respect that. But it's a complex matter. Everybody knows it's a complex matter. Our focus is housing first, get the housing built with the wraparound supports. And so at this point, our focus is getting people out of encampments and into housing. I don't think we as a community are serving the vulnerable population by allowing them to live in an encampment for an indefinite period of time and that always be their permanent home. That's not their permanent home. It shouldn't be.
And she did raise that was a concern with the sanctioned encampments as well, actually, that they would be viewed as a permanent place. And she said, ultimately the goal is more affordable housing. In the meantime, though, could garbage pickup happen now, for example? Some of the services and things that would provide dignity or portable washrooms, which is actually, a human right. Emily Brass did a whole report for us on CBC last week talking about, actually the right to what a houseless person's right would be to, right to a washroom. Could we look in Winnipeg at having more of those services around the encampments that do exist?
Well, for sure, you raised garbage pickup. That has been a topic of conversation for quite a while at City Hall. We've taken some action on that. In fact, the City of Winnipeg has been partnering with some of the frontline agencies who are providing some of that regular garbage pickup and doing so in a manner that is in collaboration with the people living in the encampments. Let's also remember that where there are encampments in proximity, there are people who are living in apartment buildings and homes, and we get consistent calls as councillors and mayor, and I understand that. I appreciate that from residents. I've met with residents who live in apartments, for example.
We had some folks on from Osborne Village last week. Yep.
Yes. I've met with some of those folks who have great concern about the encampments and they're living next to areas where sometimes there's not regular trash pickup, or there's a lot of garbage, and there's abandoned shopping carts and the like, and so it is. It's a very complex issue. We're tackling it head on. I have a meeting coming up, in fact, tomorrow with Minister Smith, Bernadette Smith, the Provincial Minister of Housing, Homelessness and Addiction. And I believe we are making good progress together as a city and a province with the service agencies. I believe we're going to continue to do that. We need one coordinated plan that everybody's working off of, with a priority on housing first with wraparound supports. And I think we should continue to focus all efforts on getting to that.
Just before we leave this topic of encampments and move to another topic area for our monthly interview, Mayor Gillingham, I want to ask you about protocols specifically for encampments. In the meantime, I respect that the ultimate goal is affordable housing, but in the meantime, we have people living in the encampments for various reasons. What protocols are in place already or could be strengthened? We heard from Hamilton yesterday that because of fire hazard, that one of the protocols was no, overhang of a tarp attached to a structure. We also heard that in Hamilton, some people like this, some people didn't, but what they have there is a limit on 5 tents per encampment. Some people said they lost community and didn't have enough strength in numbers. Other people said that was more manageable in terms of feeling safe because it was a smaller community. What are your thoughts on specific protocols for encampments in Winnipeg?
We do have a set of, I would say, an agreed upon set of, we call it protocols, or we call it a process map for encampments. First of all, and I commend again the frontline agencies who have relationship with individuals living in encampments and are trying to make sure that their needs are being met and they're getting them out of encampments into housing where possible. Where there's a requirement for emergency services to come in, to make, as you indicate, to make sure that there's not fire safety issues, or where paramedics are needed, or where there may be criminal activity, emergency service personnel need to be able to go in there. That's part of our process that we agree upon already. We, be the City of Winnipeg and all the frontline agencies, that's been well established. Too often, Marcy, the most vulnerable people in our community are the ones who are often the most victimized by crime and whose lives can be at risk. And sometimes, many times, those individuals are people living in encampments. So we have to make sure that our emergency service personnel can go in and do their work to help and assist the people that need that assistance. And they need to be able to go into encampments and do that work.
We'll see what happens with your meeting with the province tomorrow. 7:46 a.m. the time right now. This is our regular monthly interview with Scott Gillingham, the Mayor of Winnipeg. You're on the police board. Let's switch gears here. The next chief is going to be chosen. Just this week, the Southern Chiefs Organization, Grand Chief Jerry Daniels, with a call to action saying, quote, "We are no longer surprised when police harass, belittle, and abuse our First Nation citizens, acting with complete disregard because it happens so often. It's gone on for 150 years, end quote." He is making a call for the police service. He says to the next chief rather be a person that will have a willingness to address urgently needed, as he put it, culture change within the force. We also have, a CBC Manitoba, a pro poll of Winnipeggers saying, they want the chief to prioritize downtown safety, reduce petty crime. And then after 8 today, we're going to hear from an I-Team report about a Winnipeg officer, it's in the news this morning, with a history of misconduct allegations who's facing more scrutiny because 3 Ethiopian men, Winnipeggers, say he targeted their community. 3 Ethiopian men. As you're weighing all of this, what is the top priority for you in the next police chief? And what are you looking for in that person?
Well, I'll speak as mayor. Yes, I sit on the police board. Councillor Marcus Chambers, chair of the board, speaks on behalf of the board. So I'll speak as mayor. And I've said this before. The Winnipeg has a great opportunity right now in selecting the next chief of police. That individual has a significant amount of impact in our community. As mayor, I'm looking for someone who is a strong leader, but who's a listener.